Okay, let's choose up. I'll take Jamal and Tutal. You can have Chubbs and Skippy. Let's go. My ball.
Okay. But you got skins.
Not a good negotiator? You don't have to be a good negotiator at McCarthy Chevrolet. McCarthy guarantees the lowest prices on a new Chevy or we'll pay you $10,000. We guarantee there's no need to shop anyplace else. McCarthy Chevrolet, I-35 and Santa Fe, Olathe.
You're listening to Track Talk with the RacinBoys, brought to you by McCarthy Chevrolet in Olathe, or visit them online at McCarthyChevyKC.com.
It's Track Talk on RacinBoys Radio, Sports Radio 810 WHB. I'm Scott Traylor, Little Rock, Kirk Elliott, Todd Surprise back at RacinBoys HQ. Joining us now on the show is a guy that has done as much for 360 sprint car racing and bringing the popularity of sprint car racing back to Central Missouri as much as any man around. And I'm talking about the founder of the Winged Outlaw Warriors, Archie Simpson. Archie, how you doing, my friend? Thanks for taking the time to be on the show with us.
Doing fine this morning, Kirk. How are you today?
I'm doing great. We're just all trying to see if this rain will come out of here and see if we can get some racing in tonight. That's what we're thinking about tonight.
Well, we sure hope so. We need it real bad. It's getting very dry. It's probably one of the driest summers we've had in many, many years, but that's just the price we have to pay to live in this old world sometime, you know.
Yeah. Archie, this is Scott. I want to ask you, first of all, how are you doing after that? Boy, it was a narrow miss for you as well. How are you doing after the accident last Sunday?
Well, I'm doing very well. I didn't get hit by the car that came through the guardrail. My friend Mark did, but I just kind of jumped to the side behind the Toyota pickup. Me and another guy, Larry McCown, was standing there talking, and all I got was just a little bruise on my arm and a couple Band-Aids on a little scratch on there they put on. But I'm doing good. I didn't get hit by the car itself. It's just amazing we didn't. But
well, Archie, I know that you and Mark have been friends for a long time. And I understand he's a big fan of yours, and you guys go to races all the time. You're sitting there, and your friend is injured that came to the races with you. Take us through that moment there. Just that had to be terrifying for you to see your friend injured like that.
Well, it was just absolute disaster, you know, the way it happened, because the car, when I looked up, the car was coming crossways across the track. And I could tell by the sound, it was wide open. The person was driving that car, and I'm sure he didn't mean to, but the car was full throttle. And when it hit that guardrail, jumped it, came through the fence, and everybody just kind of started scattering out of the way from the right end to the left. And my friend Mark Quisenberry had gone down to get a Coke just 5 minutes before, and asked Larry and I if we'd like a Coke, and I said, no, I just had a water, so I don't need anything. So he said, I'm going to go down and get a Coke, Arch, I'll be right back. So he proceeded on down to get a Coke, came back, and I guess he had just re-entered the area where we were all standing, and here come the car through the fence. After talking to Mark 2 or 3 times this week, he said, Art, I don't remember too much about it other than it was just a flash, he said, and I was on the ground. I knew something had hit me, but I had no idea what he said.
Right. How's his spirits right now, Archie? I mean, obviously that's at his age, any age for that matter, to lose a limb like that. How's his spirits right now?
Well, Mark's 57 years old, and he's really in good spirits right at the time. He did lose a leg about 2 inches above the kneecap. He's got a crack over his nose. He's got a left shoulder that's kept popping out of the socket, but they got it tied down and kind of held in there now. I guess he's got a fracture in that shoulder also. He was telling me that they done X-ray or CAT scan of the hip on the left side, and it's got a crack in it. He said, but when Mark explained it, he said, "Hell, after all the other stuff," he said it's minor. And he said the doctor said, "Don't worry about the crack at the time. You know," he said it'll kind of heal on its own. If it don't, we'll have to do something later. But that's your least to worry right now is the little crack in the hip bone. So.
Archie,
go ahead, Kirk.
This is Scott again. I was just going to say
Scott, I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's okay. I was just going to say though, as big a this was a bad deal. We all know it, and we understand how bad it is, and that we got to look at things to fix things. But let's be fair; it could have been a lot worse, couldn't it, have, Archie? I mean, you were right down there in the middle of it. It could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, if that car would have came through the guardrail and fence facing the racetrack where I was, if it would have came through to the right of me 10 feet, it would have went right through the side of the trailer of the officials, and they was getting ready to do a redraw, and there was probably 10, 12, 15 drivers standing there around the table. If that car would have came through there, hit that trailer, it ain't no telling who all would have been
hurt, killed, or anything else,
killed or whatever, you know. But it could have been real bad, you know.
Yeah. Kirk?
Archie, you've been around the Missouri State Fair for a good many years, and that barrier that's right next to the racetrack along the front straightaway certainly was a lot taller on the race side than it used to be. They piled some dirt up against that guardrail. Did anybody ever notice that before or say anything about how much that guardrail really was not that effective?
I don't recall anybody mentioning it about being covered up with the dirt or shortened up with the dirt. But, you know, the people that go there quite often, including myself, you know, we saw it, but hell, whoever thought that there'd be a car come through that, you know, but if the guardrail had probably been taller, there's no way of knowing that, but if it had probably been like it was a few years ago, it might have prevented that car from coming through there, you know, but there's no way of knowing that, you know, but you know, anytime you're around auto racing, you can't do enough safety.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I know I worked there for the Speedway a few years ago, and two or three things that I saw at that time were just absolutely uncalled for that was happening. And I told at that time, you know, we either fix it or get you another manager here, because I'm not interested in working in these conditions and get somebody hurt, you know. So there's just some little things that happen that people need to pay more attention to, is what it amounts to. You know? Now, whether that would have prevented that car from coming through, I've got no way of knowing if it'd been a taller guardrail. But it sure in the hell wouldn't hurt anything, you know.
I think all racetracks have to take a look at what their fencing, especially because, you know, Archie, you've been doing this a long time, a lot longer than I've been traveling around to these racetracks, and I've been going since the '60s, and there's a lot of tracks out there that their fence is a little sketchy, you know, to say the least. And I think
really
this is
and I'm sure this is going to open up a lot of eyes.
I think so
at
too.
Other facilities, I'm sure it will. You know.
And let's hope we gain something from this, make some positives out of this negative a little bit.
That is right. Yeah.
Is it your?
You know.
I was going to say, is it your thought that? I mean, what do you think? Like I say, you've been around the Missouri State Fair a long time. What do you think lies in the future for racing at the fairgrounds now?
Well, I certainly hope they don't discontinue it. I think what the Fair Board in the state of Missouri can do at the fairgrounds is to go in and take a look what happened and redo guardrails around the front straightaway, maybe even part of a chain link fence with cable or whatever through there, you know, and don't let people park anywhere close to that front straightaway like they have in the past, or stand there. You know,
Right,
they
right.
gotta have.
I agree.
You know, Knoxville, they put a designated area for their pit crew and their drivers and stuff. You know, you stay behind this line, and we don't want you out there where a car can come through. And it's not just Knoxville. There's many racetracks that need to be addressed on it, you know.
Archie, what do you think about? Do you have a feel or sense that they will race down there again? And if they did race down there, this is really what I want to ask you. Do you think that these? I mean, I understand this charity was for a great cause, this Battle of the Badges, and it's for you know, the Missouri Special Olympics. But that's a big, fast, flat track that it takes a lot of experience to get around that place pretty quick. I'm kind of thinking that maybe people that don't have experience maybe shouldn't be racing on that type of track. Not saying that lack of experience caused that wreck, but it had to contribute to it a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I would agree that the Badgers race was not a good idea for that particular racetrack. But there again, I'm not the fair board.
Right.
That was their decision that they made, and that's something that they have to live with. But those type of cars are not made for an unexperienced race car drivers, you would say. I know they're good drivers. Or some of them was highway patrolmen, some of them was deputy sheriffs and sheriffs or whatever. I mean, yeah, they got experience of driving at high speeds, but that's a different ball game when you get out on a big old flat dirt racetrack. It ain't like driving down the highway with your red lights on at 110 mile an hour or something, you know.
Yeah.
The people move over.
Yeah.
This is a different ball game when you get out on a dirt racetrack, running at higher speeds, you know.
We forgot to mention the young Jordan Creason, who was injured in that last heat race, got upside down in turn 1 and 2. Boy, we hate to see it, a young driver that's trying to get into this game that you've worked so hard to promote and get to this level. Your thoughts about Jordan, and boy, it sounds like he's got a tough road ahead of him.
Well, I didn't see the accident. I was up at the opposite end of the racetrack where this happened. But I can tell you that the speeds are going, the precautions that it has to be taken. You know, the seat belts, anything pertaining to safety. You got it. You can't have too much of it. You know.
Right.
When I had the WOW before I got sick, I was a hard pusher for safety, and some of the people, George Shell and some of the people that worked with me, they was spot checking all the time to make sure the belts were in good shape, to make sure they had a strap over the torque tube to the drive line part. And, you know, anything that could be spot checked, we've done it all the time, you know. Now, I'm not going to say we was perfect, but
Sure.
Everybody's got to keep looking for safety.
Hey, did you allow 15-year-olds to race, Archie, when it was your series?
I didn't. I let one little boy, or let's say little boy, a young man, drive a car up at Lamont one night, and his parents were there, and I believe he was 16, maybe 17, and he'd been racing a little bit on the 305s, I think, in that area before, and even at that racetrack. And I said, I don't think it's a good idea to do this. But parents finally talked me into letting him run that night, and I did. But I said, from here on out, I would prefer not to have young men like that driving a car with the experienced drivers that we have, you know, and the speed they're going. They all got to start somewhere, and most of them start in the go-karts, or they start in the micro midgets, they start in the 305 cars, and move up to the 360s and the 410 cars. But it's kind of like the boy that runs NASCAR, the Gordon kid, you know. I remember seeing him run Knoxville when he was 15 years old. And that's one of the faster tracks in the country, you know. But,
I'm like you, Archie. I think they need to be 16 years old before they, that's just,
Well,
I've always stated that. That's kind of, you got to have a driver's license, basically what I've always thought,
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good idea, and I'm not taking away from the young man because he did
I'm
get
not
hurt
either.
at 15 years old. That's just something that happens. But, it's kind of like Danny Lasowski years ago when we was running at Marshall back in the 1960s, or 63, I think it was, 64. And maybe a little later than that, even in the 70s when I was helping Hibbert and some of the guys. Danny jumped in the car one night and won a feature, and when he got around to, they wanted to stop on the front straightaway to take a photo. Well, he couldn't stop because George was supposed to be driving the car, and George wasn't driving it. Danny was driving it. So Danny wasn't very old at that time. I was maybe 14, 15 years old.
Right.
I think that was in 72, 73, maybe somewhere back in that time,
Yeah. Before we let you go, Archie, what are you doing with yourself nowadays? What do you do to entertain yourself? You go to a few races or not very often?
I go to a few races. Mark and I have gone to probably 4 or 5 races this year. My wife, she goes to the races some, but not as much as she used to when we had the association. It was not quite as good, she says.
Yeah.
But
you miss it? You miss promoting?
I do, and I'm not going to say this for sure, but I've kicked it around the last few months. But I may get back into it,
Really? Into sprint car racing, though? It'd only be sprint car racing, right?
Well, possibly. I don't know yet. I enjoyed what I'd done for 10 years with the sprint car racing, and kind of brought things back to mid-Missouri that it didn't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Give a lot of drivers an opportunity to stay at home and not have to travel 4 hours to go race, Yeah. And but I don't know. I
never say never.
I think I'm ready to do it tomorrow, and then sometimes I say, "What the hell are you thinking about?"
Well, Arch.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Archie. Well, thanks for being on the show. Pass our thoughts along to Mark and tell him we're thinking about him, and hopefully we'll see him back out of track real soon.
Yeah.
And tell him we're thinking about him, would you?
I'll do that. Mark is they're going to move him, I think, last night or today. I think they moved him last night over to rehab. There's Russ. They're in Columbia on Business Loop, and I'm sure Mark would be tickled to death to get a card or something from some of the fans or racers or whatever. And also, not to take anything away from Mark's deal, but the Roy Woods' wife, she got hurt real bad, broken ankle, collar, neck problem, and shoulder, and a lot of bruises and cuts on her legs. Matter of fact, she came up by day before yesterday to the hospital in a wheelchair. She was there getting some more tests done, and Roy brought her up to see Mark, and she's been through
quite a bit herself.
Yeah.
Very
much so. Yeah.
And you knew the other people involved as well, I'm sure, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure there was a few there that was minor, but I think Leela and Mark got the worst of it, But, and I'm sure there's other people involved also,
Yeah. Archie, thanks so much again for being on the show. We're up against a commercial break, and if you ever decide to get back in this old game of sprint car racing or promoting, let us know, and we'll help you out as much as we can. All right? Thanks, Archie.
I appreciate that. It may not be tomorrow, but I do have it running through my head once in a while,
Well, that must be
all right.
Feeling good. We appreciate it, Archie. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
All righty.
Bye.
There is the former founder of the founder of the Winged Outlaw Warriors, and just an all-around good guy. But, man, tough situation that he was put in, seeing his friend lose his leg down there and some of his friends get hurt. All right, we better get to the break. We're running late. When we come back, we'll have time to take a couple phone calls. We want to hear what your opinion is about what happened last weekend down at the fair. Phone lines are open, 913-381-810-810, 913-381-810. I want to know, should it have been canceled, yes or no? And I want to know if people are upset that some of the drivers are complaining that they weren't paid for the laps that they did make at the track. All right, 913-381-810. We'll be right back.